I walked into a kitchen in the middle of July with the homeowner standing in about an inch of gray water, and the smell hit me before anything else did. Sewage backup, straight up through the kitchen sink, all over a floor she just redone 8 months earlier. She kept asking me the same question over and over. I don't understand. I never put anything weird down there, and I believed her. Most people never do anything weird. They just do normal everyday stuff that seems harmless, and it adds up over years until one Tuesday afternoon, the whole system says no more. I spent 30 years walking into houses right after they broke, doing the fast fix that kept things from getting worse before the real repair crews showed up. And I can tell you, kitchen drains caused more flooded floors, more ruined cabinets, and more insurance claims than almost anything else I dealt with, and every single one of them was avoidable. So today I want to walk you through 5 things people pour down their kitchen drain without thinking twice. 5 things that are quietly wrecking the pipes in your own walls right now. I'll tell you exactly what's happening inside that pipe when you do it, what the repair actually costs when it finally catches up with you, and what to do instead, in plain, cheap, boring terms that actually work. Number 4 is the one almost nobody talks about, and it's caused more service calls in my career than people would ever guess. And stick around to the end because I've got a 5-minute monthly habit that costs you next to nothing and will keep your drain running clean for years. My name is Frank. I spent over 30 years as an emergency repair technician working with home insurance companies. When a pipe burst, a storm tore through, or a house flooded, I was usually one of the first people through the door, doing the fast, temporary fix that stopped the damage from spreading before the adjusters and the real contractors showed up. In 3 decades of that work, I walked through more flooded kitchens than I could ever count, and I want to tell you, the drain problems were never complicated. They were always the same 5 habits showing up in house after house, year after year. Here's the thing that used to get me every time. Most of the people I helped weren't careless. They were just never told any of this. Nobody hands you a manual when you move into a house that says, here's what actually destroys your pipes. So folks pour things down the sink that seem completely normal, and 3, 5, 10 years later, they're staring at a plumber's bill that could have bought a decent used car, and they have no idea why it happened. That's the injustice here. It's not that people are doing something wrong on purpose. It's that the information that would have saved them thousands of dollars just never made it to them. So stick with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what's safe to rinse down your drain, what needs to go in the trash, and one habit that could save your pipes for the rest of the time you live in that house. Here's what most people get wrong, right out of the gate. They think of their kitchen drain like a chute. Something goes in one end, water pushes it along, and it disappears out the other end, gone forever. That's not how it works. Your drain line is a long metal or plastic tube with bends, dips, and joints, and anything that doesn't fully dissolve in water has plenty of opportunities to slow down, stick, and start building a wall. Once you understand that your pipe is basically one long obstacle course and not a straight shot to nowhere, the rest of this list is going to make a lot more sense. Let's start with the big one: grease, fat, and cooking oil. You fry up some bacon on a Saturday morning. There's grease sitting in the pan, it's liquid, it looks just like water, so you run some hot tap water over it and rinse it away. I understand the logic. Problem is that grease is only liquid because it's hot. The second it hits the cooler walls of your drain pipe, maybe 8 inches down, 10 inches down, it starts turning solid again, right there on the inside of the pipe. It doesn't wash away, it coats. And every time you rinse a little more grease down there, you're painting on another layer like coats of varnish. I've cut open pipes on old houses where the opening had gone from a solid 2 inches down to something you could barely slide a pencil through, just from years of bacon grease and butter. Add in a little soap film and some food bits sticking to that grease, and you've built yourself what plumbers call a fatberg. Some city sewer crews have pulled grease blockages out of the main lines the size of a small car. In your house, it's smaller scale, but the ending is the same. Slow drains, a smell that won't go away no matter how much you clean the sink, and eventually a full backup, which, take it from a guy who's mopped up plenty of them, is a miserable way to spend an afternoon. A plumber clearing a grease-clogged line with a hydrojet is typically going to run you somewhere between $300 and $1,000. If that grease has been sitting long enough to actually corrode the pipe, you could be looking at several $1,000s in replacement work. The fix costs you nothing and takes 30 seconds. Let the grease cool right there in the pan until it firms up, scrape it into an old coffee can or any container you don't care about, and toss it in the trash. For the thin film left behind, wipe the pan with a paper towel before it ever touches the sink. That's it. That's the whole fix. Second thing, and this one surprises people because it feels like the responsible move: chemical drain cleaners. You've got a slow drain, you grab a bottle off the shelf at the hardware store, pour it in, wait 20 minutes, and the water starts moving again. Feels like you solved the problem. You didn't. Here's what's actually going on inside that pipe. Most of those products work through a chemical reaction that generates real heat, sometimes climbing close to 200 degrees Fahrenheit right inside your pipe. That heat is what's eating through the clog, but it's also eating your plumbing. If you've got older metal pipes, that heat and those harsh chemicals speed up corrosion from the inside out. If you've got PVC, which is most homes built in the last few decades, that heat can actually soften the plastic and warp the joints, and a warped joint is a future leak, guaranteed. And here's the part that really gets me. Those chemicals usually don't clear the whole clog. They burn a narrow channel through the middle of it, just enough to get water moving again, and the bulk of the blockage is still sitting right there. So a few weeks later, it's slow again, you pour in more chemicals, and you repeat that cycle, and every single time your pipes take a little more damage. I've been called out to homes where years of that habit left the pipes so brittle that whole sections had to be cut out and replaced. That's a $2,000 to $5,000 repair caused by a bottle that costs about $8. If you'd rather fix things yourself than keep handing your money to a plumber for problems you could have avoided, go ahead and hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Doesn't cost you anything, and it helps me keep putting these out. Instead of the chemical route, spend $20 to $30 on a hand-cranked drain snake or auger from any hardware store. It physically pulls the clog out instead of trying to melt it, and it does zero damage to your pipe. For regular upkeep, an enzyme-based drain treatment used once a month will break down organic buildup safely, no heat involved. And if you've got a clog that just won't move for you, call a plumber with a real drain machine. Clearing it professionally almost always costs a fraction of what it takes to replace pipe that's been cooked from the inside. Third one, coffee grounds. I lost count of how many kitchen calls started with me asking, "So what's been going down this sink?" And the homeowner mentioning coffee grounds like it was nothing. And I get why. You dump your French press or your filter into the sink, it rinses away, looks totally fine, but coffee grounds don't dissolve in water, not even a little. They stay solid all the way down, and they settle wherever your pipe bends or dips or connects to another line. Layer after layer, they pack together almost like wet sand. And once wet sand settles in, water has a hard time pushing through it. What makes it worse is that coffee grounds love to stick to grease residue, and nearly every kitchen drain has at least a thin film of that sitting around, so the grounds grab onto it and build a sludgy, stubborn blockage. And no, running the garbage disposal doesn't save you here. That disposal chops up bigger scraps, but coffee grounds are already tiny. They sail right through the blades and straight into your drain line where the real trouble starts. A plumber clearing a coffee ground clog is typically looking at $150 to $500, depending how deep it's packed and how long it's been building. Simple fix. Grounds go in the trash, or even better, in a compost pile if you've got a garden, because your tomato plants will love them. Just keep them out of the pipe. Fourth thing, and this is the one that catches almost everybody off guard because these feel like completely harmless foods: flour, pasta, rice, and potatoes. Let's start with flour because in my experience, it's the worst offender nobody ever blames. Think about what happens when you mix flour and water in a bowl. You get paste. That is exactly what happens the second flour hits water inside your drain pipe. Whether you're rinsing a cutting board, washing a mixing bowl, or cleaning your hands after breading some chicken. It turns gluey immediately, coats the inside of the pipe, and hardens as it dries, and now you've got a sticky surface that grabs onto everything else that comes down after it. Pasta and rice are just as bad in a different way. You already know they expand as they absorb water. What most folks don't realize is that they keep expanding after they're done cooking, right there inside your pipe, soaking up whatever moisture is around, swelling up, pressing against the walls. Pasta gets soft and sticky as it swells, and it clumps together almost like a physical plug. Potato peels are notorious for jamming garbage disposals because they're thin and slick, and they slide right past the blades. Mashed potatoes are worse because that's basically a thick starchy paste going directly into your drain line. A starch-related clog typically runs $150 to $600 to fix, and if it's had time to fully harden, you might need professional hydrojetting to break it up. The fix is dead simple. Scrape pasta, rice, potato peels, and any flour residue into the trash or your compost bin before you ever run water over the dishes. And get yourself a cheap mesh strainer basket for your sink drain. They run a couple of dollars, and they catch all of this before it ever reaches your pipe. A $2 strainer beats a $600 plumber visit every single time, no contest. Fifth and last one, paint and solvents, and this surprises people because a lot of folks have been rinsing brushes and rollers in the kitchen sink for years without a second thought. You finish painting the spare room or touching up some trim, and it just feels natural to rinse everything under the faucet. What you're actually sending down that pipe is worse than most people realize. Start with latex paint, since that's what's in most homes. People assume that because it's water-based, it's harmless to rinse away. In small amounts with a lot of running water, some towns will technically allow it. But even water-based latex has binders and pigments and chemical additives in it that don't break down easily. Rinse a roller full of that into your sink, and it flows into the drain line and starts coating the inside of the pipe. It dries into a hard film, and after a few painting projects over the years, that film has genuinely narrowed the inside of your pipe. Oil-based paints and solvents, paint thinner, turpentine, mineral spirits are a whole different level of bad. These are hazardous chemicals. They eat away at rubber gaskets and seals in your plumbing. They can damage PVC over time. And if your house is on a septic system, pouring solvents down that drain can kill off the beneficial bacteria your septic tank needs to break down waste, which can lead to a full septic failure. I've seen that repair run $10,000 and up. On top of the plumbing damage, in most states, it's actually illegal to pour paint and solvents down a drain because it contaminates the water supply. Municipalities do enforce this, and fines can run from a few $100s to several thousand. So here's how you actually handle paint cleanup. For latex paint, wipe your brushes and rollers on newspaper or old rags first to get most of it off, then wash them in a bucket of water instead of the sink. Let that bucket sit until the paint settles to the bottom, pour the clear water on top out into your yard away from any storm drain, and throw the dried solids in the trash. For oil-based paint and solvents, never pour them down any drain, kitchen, or otherwise. Store them in a sealed container and take them to your local household hazardous waste facility. Most towns run collection events a few times a year, and a lot of hardware stores will take leftover paint off your hands too. A little extra effort here protects your pipes, your septic system, your wallet, and honestly, the water everybody downstream from you is drinking. Now let me tell you why all this actually holds up. In plain terms, no engineering degree required. Your drain pipe is built to move water and things that either dissolve in water or break down into small enough pieces to ride along with it. Anything that solidifies, expands, or hardens once it's inside that pipe is working against the one thing the pipe is designed to do. Grease and paint solidify. Flour and starches expand and turn gluey. Coffee grounds just never break down at all. And chemical cleaners generate heat that damages the very material the pipe is made from. Whether that's old galvanized steel or modern PVC, none of this is a mystery or some industry secret. It's just basic material behavior, the same as why you don't leave a candle near a heat vent or run a space heater on an extension cord. Materials do what materials do, and pipes are no exception. Now let's talk money, because this is where I think most people get taken advantage of without even realizing it. A grease clog that leads to pipe corrosion can run you $2,000 to $5,000 in replacement work. A single call for a chemical damage pipe section can land in that same range. Add up starch clogs, coffee ground clogs, and paint buildup over 10 or 15 years in a house, and you're easily looking at 5 figures over the life of that home, all from habits that cost nothing to fix. Compare that to what prevention actually costs you. A coffee can for grease, free. A drain strainer, $2 or $3. A hand crank auger, $20 to $30, and it'll outlast you. An enzyme drain treatment, maybe $8 to $12 a bottle used once a month. That is the entire investment required to avoid thousands of dollars in plumbing repair. I want to be clear, I'm not telling you every plumber out there is trying to rip you off. Most of the guys I worked alongside for 30 years were straight shooters doing honest work. But I will tell you this. A lot of the emergency calls I went on could have been completely avoided with habits that cost less than a fast food lunch. That's the real waste here, not bad plumbers, just information that never reached the person standing at the sink. I've also put together a free home repair guide, checklists, tool lists, and the basic fixes every homeowner should know before they ever call somebody. It's linked right in the description below, so go grab that if you haven't already. So here's what I'd like you to do this weekend. Walk over to your kitchen sink right now and take a look under it. Grab a cheap mesh strainer if you don't already have one in the drain. Pick up a coffee can or an old container and keep it by the stove for grease. If you've got a bottle of chemical drain cleaner sitting under there, do yourself a favor and toss it and pick up a hand crank auger instead. It's a one-time $20 purchase that'll serve you for years. And if you've got any old paint cans in the garage that you've been meaning to deal with, look up your county's household hazardous waste schedule and get them off your hands the right way. None of this takes more than an hour total, and it could save you thousands down the road. If you've got a repair horror story of your own, a quote from a contractor that made your jaw drop, or a clog you finally beat on your own, drop it in the comments. I read every one of them, and I always enjoy hearing what other folks have run into. And don't forget, that free home repair guide is linked in the description if you want the checklists to go along with everything we covered today. Next time, I'm going to walk you through the water heater mistakes that quietly cut years off its life, and one of them is probably happening in your basement or your closet right now without you knowing it. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Fixing it right isn't about being fancy. It's about taking care of what you've got and the people who depend on you.